Real estate words and terms with meanings and examples, part number 17. Lease option, which means a contract that gives a tenant the right to buy the property at a later date. For example, a tenant signs a lease option to rent for 1 year with the option to purchase the home afterward. Legal description, which means a detailed description of a property's boundaries used in legal documents. For instance, the deed includes a legal description using lot numbers and measurements. Lessee, which means the person who rents or leases a property. For example, the lessee agrees to pay monthly rent to the landlord. Lessor, which means the property owner who leases or rents out the property. For instance, the lessor maintains the property and collects rent. Leverage, which means using borrowed money to increase the potential return on investment. For example, investors use leverage by taking a mortgage to buy a rental property. License, which means a temporary, revocable permission to use someone else's property. For instance, a license might allow someone to park on a neighbor's land temporarily. Limited partnership, which means a business structure with general partners who manage and limited partners who invest but don't manage. For example, a limited partnership invests in real estate developments with investors as limited partners. Listing price, which means the price at which a property is offered for sale. For instance, the seller sets the listing price based on market conditions. Loan estimate, which means a document that shows estimated loan terms and costs for a mortgage application. For example, the lender provides a loan estimate within 3 days of the application. Loan modification, which means a change to the terms of an existing loan, often to make payments easier. For instance, a homeowner gets a loan modification to reduce monthly payments during financial hardship. Lot line, which means the legal boundary line of a property. For example, the fence marks the lot line between 2 neighboring properties. Maintenance fee, which means a recurring charge for the upkeep of a property or community. For instance, condo owners pay a monthly maintenance fee for common area repairs. Market analysis, which means an evaluation of current market conditions to determine property value. For example, agents conduct a market analysis to suggest a competitive listing price. Market rent, which means the typical rent amount that similar properties command in the same area. For instance, the landlord sets rent based on market rent for comparable apartments nearby. Market saturation, which means when the supply of properties exceeds demand in a specific market. For example, high market saturation can lead to longer selling times and lower prices. Material fact, which means important information that could affect a buyer's decision. For instance, a past flood history is a material fact that must be disclosed. Mechanic's lien, which means a legal claim against a property by a contractor or supplier unpaid for work. For example, a contractor files a mechanic's lien after the homeowner fails to pay for renovations. Market value, which means the estimated amount a property would sell for in a competitive and open market. For instance, the appraiser determined the market value based on recent sales nearby. Mixed-use property, which means a property that combines residential, commercial, or industrial uses. For example, a building with apartments above retail stores is a mixed-use property. MLS, multiple listing service, which means a database where real estate agents share property listings. For instance, agents list homes on the MLS to increase exposure to buyers. Mobile home, which means a prefabricated home that can be moved and is often placed in a trailer park. For example, the family bought a mobile home to live in an affordable community. Mortgage banker, which means a company or a person that originates and funds mortgage loans directly to borrowers. For instance, the mortgage banker approved the buyer's loan and funded the purchase. Mortgage broker, which means an intermediary who connects borrowers with lenders but does not fund loans. For example, the mortgage broker helped find the best loan options for the buyer. Mortgage contingency, which means a clause in a sales contract that makes the purchase dependent on loan approval. For instance, the buyer included a mortgage contingency to protect themselves if financing falls through. Mortgage rate, which means the interest rate charged on a mortgage loan. For example, the buyer secured a mortgage rate of 4.5% for their 30-year loan.